Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and I'm going to react to this show as I watch it. Let's see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
Julia gave me this ultimatum to either leave the farm or she's going back to Russia. So I told my parents I need to talk to them. I'm worried about how my parents will react. I know my mom's definitely not going to take it well, but I now have to put my foot down because my relationship with Julia is in jeopardy.
So this is going to be very interesting to watch. I cannot imagine how this conversation is going to go. I can't see Brandon actually even telling the parents. Maybe he'll, veer away from saying it at the last minute. I don't know. But if he does say it, I also can't imagine what the parents are going to say. Now, under most circumstances, you would think that a 27-year-old man would say, I think it's time I'm going to move out. I know we had planned I'd move out in a couple months, but I want to move out early. And I guess one of there's two choices here. One is he could say, Julia's giving me an ultimatum, or another thing he could say is, we came to a decision that we would move out. That would be the better move, right, politically and diplomatically. So, and it basically is his decision because it's not like he's being coerced into moving out. So there's that. So I guess we'll see what he says here. I'm really curious as to how this conversation is going to go. I could see it going. So let's imagine what this could look like under some circumstances. Not this family, but a different family. It could look like this, but I don't imagine it will. 27-year-old man says, we have decided that we're going to move out. I know we thought we'd move out later, but we're actually going to move out now. And I know this is a little hasty. I know that this might be kind of an adjustment for you, and I'm sorry for that. But we're just really ready to move on with the next phase of our life, and I just can't wait to start that, and so we're going to move out. And, okay, parents on the inside are like a little disappointed. They're going to miss their son. Maybe they have to figure out labor for the farm, I guess. But they suppress that because they see the bigger picture, which is their son is moving on with his life, which is a wonderful thing. He's found the love of his life. He's going to move out with her. They're going to potentially get married. It's grounds for a celebration. There might be some bittersweetness. I mean, any parent out there that watches knows how it feels when your kid moves out. On one hand, you absolutely love the fact that they're moving out. On the other hand, it's sad. You're seeing your kid grow up and the empty nest and the worries thereof are there. But you suppress that in the moment. Maybe you say, it's like, well, this is a little bittersweet for me, son, because I'm going to be sad to see you go. But I'm really happy for you, and I support this 100%. That would be what we would expect to see. Unless there is some circumstance, maybe in this conversation it'll come out. Maybe all the questions will be answered like, well, you know that if you leave the farm, you have a special kind of cancer that will kill you if you leave the farm. I'm joking, but maybe there'll be some major factor as to why they've been acting. So let's watch.
Hey, guys.
Hey, hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
So, some things have happened, and I think that Julie and I need to leave.
All right. So a little bit of thumbs up on that. For the start, he said, I think that Julia and I should leave. So that's great. Instead of saying, Julia is forcing me to leave and triangulating her, he's taking responsibility and saying, I think. That's a great start. Let's continue to watch.
What?
Leave what?
Yeah,
The farm?
Yeah,
Why?
because is she...
Really?
Wait. No.
Yikes. Wait. No. Why? Why?
She's not happy being here.
What's wrong?
She's
What's
only
the problem?
been here a few.
Okay. So then he just threw her under the bus. She's not, I mean, it is accurate, but again, given the emotional landscape, a better move would have been to just say, we have decided, just to draw that boundary. Look, I don't want to get into it, but we've decided that we want to go on to the next phase of our relationship, and I'm really sorry. But right away, she's unhappy. This is all her fault. So now the parents are naturally going to target Julia because he has not said, I really want to do this. Until he says that, then the logical answer is Julia is a terrible person for pulling our son away. Unless he establishes, which I've been saying from the beginning, there's a possibility that he is not in connection with what he wants. There is an absolute possibility, and I've treated people like this in my office who, when they're around the Julias, they will say, okay, let's do it. And when they're around the parents, they'll say, oh, it's Julia, it's not me. And you might say, well, which one is it? Is he with Julia or is he with the parents? He's only with whoever is intimidating him the most because he's terrified of disapproval, terrified of independence because he was never allowed to be autonomous. It's a bizarre situation. Why would the parents be upset? I wish that I could ask them, wait. Why do you not want him to leave? Maybe they'll say.
Few weeks.
What's the problem?
The animals, apparently.
Really?
Yikes. So the disappointment on his face. The animals, apparently. Yikes. Now, in the psychological angle, it makes total sense. If he grew up under the emotional control of his parents, then he's going to default to them. When you're intimidated, when you're scared, when you're not allowed to think for yourself, and you are worried you're going to incur some kind of massive emotional punishment if you don't align yourself with the parents, then I guess this is the tactic. I mean, if we go with his tactic is to stay in his parents' good graces, then I guess this makes sense if that's his goal. You know, for us watching, it might look like his goal is to get married. That's the whole premise of 90 Day Fiancé. It's his goal to move on with his life. It's his goal to get married and find love and to have a family. But that might not be his goal. His goal might be to actually stay in the good graces of the parents. That might be his goal, his 100% goal. And everything else is a distant second to that. And so if this is what his goal is, then he is succeeding. Because in order to stay in the parents' good graces, in order to say, well, Julia's forcing me to move out, but parents, it's all her fault. Yeah, apparently she doesn't like taking care of the animals. I don't know. She's crazy. So, yeesh.
The animals?
Yeah.
Where are you gonna get that?
I don't know. I'm gonna find an apartment.
Really? You think you can afford an apartment right now?
Yeah. I mean,
Seriously?
it's not great for our situation, but I can manage it.
So, me and my wife actually went on Zillow, which has rentals, to see the prices of rentals in their area because they talk about it. I can't remember the name of this. Is it Dinwiddle or something? But we looked it up. And there were, especially compared to Seattle, very reasonably priced, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments, or even houses. There were rental houses for very cheap, and they looked fantastic. Now, I don't know how much he earns, but according to him, he's saying, yeah, we can afford that. So, all right. Now, maybe this is shifting. Dad's like, so can you afford that? And he's like, I can afford it. So maybe this conversation will go in a direction like, well, this is a little earlier than we thought, but, congratulations, son. I doubt it'll go that way, but let's watch.
Don't make a stupid decision. I mean, think about what you're doing.
What? Okay. Now, if we could ask the dad, what do you mean by that? What are you worried about? He's 27. He has a job. He's moving out with his fiancé. What disaster do you think is going to befall him? Now, maybe he'll say something along those lines. It's like, well, you have that heart condition that I need to help you with. Or, I don't think there's anything like that. It just seems like the dad is just trying to coerce him. Now, I haven't talked about this very much because I didn't know enough, but this is in line with something that maybe I should bring up. So in order to create dependent children who think of themselves as incompetent, children who do not really have a connection with who they are, they don't have a connection with their needs, their emotions, their desires in life. If you want to create children that just follow whatever you do and are scared of you, essentially, as a default, they're not just temporarily, they're constantly in a state of fear about you. If you want to create that kind of child, which Brandon seems like a candidate for, it's hard to know, then the way you do that is you're an authoritarian style, meaning you're very controlling and very critical and very harsh, and you're very overprotective, meaning that you don't let them play on playgrounds by themselves. You don't maybe even homeschool the kids, this kind of thing. But you give a lot of messages to the child that the world is dangerous and that home is safe. Everyone else is dangerous, I am safe. In order for you to be safe, you need to do what I say. Essentially, what you're doing is you're telling the kid that because one of the major aspects of parenting from day one is that your child is constantly trying to get away from you. At the age of 1, they'll try to get away from you temporarily. They'll come back, because you're a safe place and they want to be with you. But it's just a matter of 1 minute away from you, 10 minutes with you. 1 minute away from you, 10 minutes with you. And then when they're 10 years old, it's, 5 minutes away from you, 5 minutes with you. And then when they're 18, it's 9 minutes away from you, 1 minute with you. So it's a constant vacillation between away and back. And this is attachment theory. And it's scary for parents. It's like, oh, you're going off into the world. For a toddler, it's like, oh, you might fall down on the other side of the room. For an 18-year-old, it's, oh, you might get in a car crash or someone might hurt you in the world. So there's that constant tension. And what do you do with that? Well, some parents, based on their traumas, will default to always clamping down on that. All parents, even parents that are raising really well, they have a sense of that threshold of that's going too far. That's going too far away from me. You're going too far into chaos, too far into danger. For a 1-year-old, it would be like if the kid decides you're at the park and the kid decides to go around the corner. You're not going to let your 1-year-old walk around the corner. You want eyes on your kid, right? To an 18-year-old, it might be like, what would it be for an 18-year-old? Well, let me back up to like a 13-year-old. To allow a 13-year-old to go on a trip for 2 months with people you don't really know, that would be a little bit too far away. And so when we parent our kids, we will say to them, no, that's unsafe for you. That's not okay. That makes me scared to think about you going that far. I'm not ready to let you go that far. And so we're teaching children, and children listen to that. Children listen like, oh, so that's where the boundary is, given my age. That's where the boundary is. To a 1-year-old, the boundary is I need to be within eyesight of my parents. That's the safe zone. If I'm outside of the eyesight of my parents have given me very clear messages that it's danger zone. And you'll see kids do this. They'll learn that. And by the age of 1.5, if they can't see their parents, they'll flip out. There's also an innate nature of attachment there as well. But anyway, so a 13-year-old might even be asked, hey, we're going on a trip for 2 months. Let's do it. And the 13-year-old might be like, oh, even though they're like, I don't think my parents are not gonna let me do that. They might also feel like, oh, that sounds really dangerous. Why do they think that? Well, because their parents have given them a lot of messages around what that boundary is. And so when you treat a child as if the boundary is extremely tight, then the child at the age of 27 will be terrified of what is beyond that threshold. Not only because their parents are telling them that it's terrifying on the other side of that threshold, but also because they've never been allowed to go on the other side of that threshold. The parents never let the child go out there. And there's also some benefits to that for a kid, because the kid's like, well, you have kept me safe. All kids want that. It's like, please keep me safe. And there's always this tension of like, okay, don't keep me safe in this way, but don't keep me safe in that way. And so if you're really overprotective and you're terrified as a parent, and you might be terrified for your child getting hurt, but you might also be terrified of abandonment even from your own children. We all understand that we can have traumas in our past related to abandonment and rejection. And when we have children, we can impose that fear on them. We can impose our fear of being abandoned by someone onto our children, and we will become overly protective of them and create a boundary around them that's too close and too close to us because we're terrified of them moving away, even at the age of like 7 years old. For a 7-year-old to think differently, for a 7-year-old to want to be away from you, for a 27-year-old to want to be away to move out, could trigger one's abandonment issues. And then you're going to resort to the things you've always resorted to, which is to terrify the child. You are going to make a stupid decision. You are about to make a mistake, just like you always do. Remember that time before when you did that thing? You're gonna do it again. And when you keep beating someone like this mentally and emotionally, they believe it because you're the one that defines their world, because you're the one who has kept them in this tiny little bubble. And so they look to you and they value what you have to say because they don't really have any other connections. And so it's a way of keeping people very close. You are incompetent, you're gonna mess this up, and I know what's safe, and stay close, and I will keep you. I love you. I'm going to keep you safe. It's very interesting. Now, one way to look at it, the internet will look at the parents, I'm guessing, as having this insidious evil motive. Usually, it's a result of traumas that the parents have gone through. We haven't seen much from the dad, and so he's exhibiting right now a lot of those messages of, you are going to do something stupid, and by extension, you are stupid. I am smart, you are stupid. Yikes.
You think you can afford an apartment right now?
Yeah. I mean,
Seriously?
it's not great for our situation, but I can manage it.
Don't make a stupid decision. I mean, think about what you're doing.
She's not giving me a choice. It's either that or
All right.
she's going.
So, of course, now the parents are going to lay into Julia. They're going to start pointing out all the reasons why he shouldn't be with her. If he only had a therapist, they would have walked through this scenario with him. Okay, what do you want? First off, let's start there. We know what Julia wants. We know what your parents want. What do you want, Brandon? Presumably, he would say something like, well, I really want to sustain my relationship with Julia, and so I want to. Okay, are you sure you want that? Are you really sure you want that? Are you want that because Julia wants that for you, or do you really want that? Now, I've been in a lot of conversations. A lot of therapy involves these kind of conversations. I'm not berating people. I'm just like, are you sure you want that? Because you really have to sift through your decision-making process and your sense of other people's wants for you versus your own wants for yourself. And that can be really hard, especially when you've been treated a certain way your entire life. And so once that's established, then it's like, okay, your parents are going to lay into you about this. How do you want to talk to them about it? Let's role play. What I would try to get him into a space of, look, if you want your parents to attack Julia, then throw her under the bus. If you want your parents to actually back off, if you want your parents to adjust to your decision, then you have to be the one making the choice, and you have to be the one telling the parents, this is your choice. Yes, Julia was a part of the choice, but this is my choice, and here are my 5 reasons. Here are my 5 reasons why I want to move out. Now, maybe he would say in that moment in therapy, I don't have 5 reasons for moving out. Then, again, we would spend a long time, and we might not get to it in this scenario here. We might spend the next 5 years getting in touch with who he is so he can explore what he wants and why he wants those things. As I've been saying from the beginning, we have, does he want to move out with Julia, or does he want to stay on the farm with the parents? It's unclear. Or does he want some other life? Does he not want to be on the farm? Does he not want to be with Julia? I don't think he knows. I don't think we, and by extension, we wouldn't know either. But anyway, he's continuing to triangulate her. So triangulation in systems theory. Well, you have tension right now between son and parents. He's saying, I'm going to move out, and the parents are like, no. And so the tension is regarding rejection. The parents are worried they're getting rejected right now. They're interpreting it that way, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Seemingly, that's how they're interpreting it. And Brandon is interpreting it as they are disapproving of this decision, and so they're rejecting me. And that's where the anxiety comes up. That's where the conflict comes up. And to alleviate that tension, a undifferentiated, a maladaptive dyad or a maladaptive conflict will triangulate a third element. They're triangulating Julia. Brandon is saying Julia is the problem. And then the parents will now attack Julia. And that will alleviate the conflict between Brandon and the parents a little bit. But it'll just move the anxiety now to Julia. And then that's not going to fix the problem. And then the anxiety will just go around. The way to stop this process, which I just cannot see Brandon doing, is to say, look, never mind about Julia. She's a part of this, of course, but this is my choice. I've been thinking about this before I even met Julia. So this is my choice. This is between you and me. If you have a problem with me moving out, tell me now, and we can talk about it. And maybe I'll be convinced, and maybe I won't. But talk to me. Let's leave Julia out of it.
She's either going from the
Really?
house or
She
going
told you
back to
that?
Russia. So
She told you that?
yeah.
Is there something that happened specifically that's
This makes her
created
angry with
this?
us, or is it just the animals?
So interesting that we're getting a very similar tactic or sort of mindset from the parents as we had from Brandon. Brandon did not fall far from the tree, as they say. When Julia was saying, I hate you, I need to move off, I need to move away from this farm, Brandon's like, what's the deal? You just don't like the animals? And now the parents are saying, what's the deal? She just doesn't like the animals? It's interesting.
I think it's half animals and half my mother with her neediness for me.
Okay, interesting. So we didn't hear Julia saying that in that clip, and I think the mom's about to cry, which makes me feel bad for her. I felt bad for her from the beginning. I've treated people like her before. They have deep, deep pain behind their behavior. Anyway, he is saying, okay, half of it is the animals, but the other half of it is, and it's interesting the way he worded it. Let's hear that again.
Just the animals.
I think it's half animals and half my mother with her neediness for me.
With her neediness for me, with my mother's neediness for me, my mother's neediness for me. It's an interesting way to put it, that my mother is needy for me. Like the mother is clingy. Is that what he's saying? Let's see if he elaborates.
All I've tried to do is do the right thing and love you and embrace her and bring her into our family. We were hoping that we were all going to be able to, like, pass on the farm and...
Okay, so that's interesting. There's a lot of interesting things happening right now. I'm so glad that they've finally gotten to this point. So we just heard that last bit that the mom is saying, I was really hoping that we could pass on the farm. So that seemed to be the case for both the parents, was that they were hoping that Julia and Brandon would stay on the farm. Where did they get that idea? Did they get that idea from Brandon, or did they just completely make that up? I could see either one, or I could see both, honestly. So that's interesting. But another thing we're seeing is we're starting to see some vulnerability in her. And I'm just going to take a guess and say that the internet or people, when they're watching this, normally will really hate her in this moment, that they'll think she's being manipulative, that the tears aren't really real. I'm getting a sense that these tears are real. One way to think about it is developmental stages. The way the mother has been operating, you might think of it at times as her operating from a much younger stage of life. Let's say 7 years old. I don't know this about her, but this is a helpful way of seeing people sometimes. So let's say you're 7 and you desperately want your family members to be close. That's not uncommon, right? You're 7 years old and you just really love your siblings and your parents and your friends, and you really want them to accept you. And you really want them to be a part of your life. And you don't like it when older brother goes off to college. You don't like it when divorces happen and parents live in opposite, parts of the city. You want everyone to be close. You want everyone to be with you all the time. And that could, one, produce a immature delusion about the two of them staying on the farm forever, even though they've never indicated that. It could also create the wish for them to do that. And it could also create this moment right here where the son is saying, the reason why we're leaving is because of you. That's what he's saying. And to a 7-year-old version of the mom, this could be her deepest nightmare, that because of me, I am driving people away. because of me, people are going to abandon me. Because of who I am, people are going to leave me. And I am going to cry, and I'm going to speak from a 7-year-old kind of voice even. And I'm only going to think about me. You know, when a 7-year-old has a meltdown, they don't think about other people, right? And they shouldn't. They're 7. They're developmentally at that stage. We don't expect 7-year-olds to extend their empathy to their parents, you know? Like an example might be that, let's say, older brother doesn't want to play with the 7-year-old daughter's sister. So older brother doesn't want to play with 7-year-old sister. And older brother, and you're there as parents, and your 15-year-old son is like, I don't want to play with her all the time. I want to go play with my friends. And the daughter is just like, what did I do? I don't understand. Now, an adult would be able to say, oh, well, my older brother just likes to play with his friends. We're in a different age group. I should get my own friends. But a 7-year-old doesn't think like that. A 7-year-old only thinks how it feels to themselves. And they don't think about other people's feelings usually, especially when they're melting down. And so keep that in mind, and let's rewind it and let's watch this again.
All I've tried to do is do the right thing and love you and embrace her and bring her into our family. We were hoping that we were all going to be able to, like, pass on the farm and have it go from generation to generation, and that your children would love the farm.
So she's talking about the farm, but I think emotionally what she's talking about is me. Do you accept me? Not do you accept the farm? Do you like the farm? I think for her it's do you accept me? Do you like me? It's not uncommon that when we have complexes around abandonment and rejection that we will use proxies like this sometimes. If you accept my farm, then you accept me. If you accept my art or the song I wrote or this other thing I created, then you accept me. If you accept my children, if you think my children are beautiful, then you think I'm beautiful. But really what we're talking about is, do you think I'm beautiful? Do you like me? Do you accept me? Do you want to be with me? It just sounds that way to me. I don't know. I'd have to ask the mom if this makes sense to her. But I hope that y'all, when you're watching, can see the pain in the mom's heart. It's real. It might be of a 7-year-old regressive type, but it seems real to me. And I'm guessing that the internet is going to vilify her as some kind of manipulative crier at this moment.
That's a beautiful world you paint, but
This has been our
I don't
world.
think that's the
It's
world
been
we were
our
hoping
world.
for.
I wanted it to be gaining a daughter rather than losing my son.
Now that looks a little drummed up. I'll put it that way. I'm a professional listener to people as they're crying. I've had 25 years of professionally being there as people cry genuinely. Not only my clients, but my students as well. In my university, we deal with a lot of real personal issues as you're becoming a therapist, and it's normal to cry. It's human to cry as a therapist in training, or just a therapist at any stage of your. Of any human, it's normal to cry, and we therapists deal with a lot of things, and so crying is in the same way that we all laugh sometimes, and we all get angry sometimes. We cry. Again, 7-year-olds will do this. If y'all have a 7-year-old, you've seen your 7-year-old do this, where they start whining or they really try to pour it on to try to get you to change what you're doing, because they've noticed that when they genuinely cry, you actually will warm up to them a little bit, so they're trying to do that again. I don't know. It just kind of looks that way. I think this scene is incredibly illuminating. I want to keep kind of rewatching some of these clips. Let's watch this again.
Pass on the farm and have it go from generation to generation, and that your children would love the farm.
That's a beautiful world you paint, but
This has been our
I don't
world.
think that's the
It's
world
been
we were
our
hoping
world.
for.
I wanted it to be gaining a daughter rather than losing my son.
Now, most of us would not consider this losing your son. Since I've been saying from the beginning, you still have a son. It's just an adult son. It's a 27-year-old son who doesn't live with you, which is really common. So you're not losing a son. You're gaining a daughter-in-law. They just don't live with you. You can still have a daughter-in-law. You can still have a son. But the mom, I think this is how it feels to her. I think the way this feels to her is a complete abandonment. And I'm just going to speculate that she has abandonment traumas in her life, severe ones that she has never recovered from or healed from. The way she comes across, it comes across from that regressive place, right? A place of a child that is being rejected without any ability to kind of modulate one's thoughts. As I've been saying from the beginning, it wouldn't be strange for a parent to be like, oh, bummer, bittersweet, my kid's moving out. That makes me sad. That's normal. But we have the ability to think from various different angles of like, well, the 7-year-old feels rejected right now, but my 25-year-old feels like I'm really proud of my child, or my 50-year-old feels I'm really proud of my child, and my 13-year-old wants to just yell at him, but my 25-year-old says, no, that's ridiculous, support him, he's the one in need right now. So we have these aspects to ourselves, but if you've never been able to gain those aspects or develop those aspects of yourself, then you're triggered in a particular way, then you will regress to that place. And that's what it seems like. Now, I want to be clear, I'm speculating. I would have to talk with the mom for a long time to really figure out if any of this was even remotely close to the mark. But anyway, it's an interesting hypothesis. Let's continue watching.
You're my only son. You're my baby. I don't want you to go.
I think that's part of
know.
the issue.
So we see Brandon seems bored, a little frustrated. At least that's how he's coming across to me. I don't know if he means to come across that way. He's just like, I think that's part of the issue. So let's try to imagine what's going through Brandon's mind right now. It seems there's a good possibility, who knows, we'd have to ask him, that in his mind he's like, yep, here it is. This is what I always have to deal with. This is what I always give into in the end because I want the love of my mom and I want the acceptance of my mom. And so this problem, what we're seeing right now, is what I've been dominated by my whole life. And I don't have any sympathy for it. I hate it. It's been horrible. So that's one thing he could be thinking. Another thing he could be thinking is, I don't really know what I want, but I'm pretty sure Julia is angry at you because of this. So he might be, in his mind right now, he might be completely leaving himself out of this. Like when he says, yeah, I think that's what it is. I think Julia is angry at you because of this. And I don't know, I don't have any stake in the matter. Right? That's the way it comes across. So let's rewatch that again and think about that possibility, or maybe even another possibility. There's so many things happening in this. This is really interesting.
My son. You're my only son. You're my baby. I don't want you to go.
I think that's part of
know.
the issue.
You need to sit down and talk to her.
We've done that.
You don't.
Okay, so it looks like it was the latter, in that he's like, yep, look, I'm just passing along the information. Julia wants me to leave. She gave me the ultimatum, and I think it's because she half doesn't like the farm and half because of you, because of what you do. And then the mom starts to express herself, and he's like, yep, I think that's what Julia is upset about. And so, yep, that you got it right. That's what, what are we going to do? I'm stuck in the middle here. So that appears to be how he's coming across, which really does start to lend itself toward the hypothesis that he is not in connection with what he wants, that he has no idea who he is and what he wants. That if we pulled him aside in this moment and really tried to say, okay, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want to have happen? I'm guessing what he would say is that his first reaction would say, well, I want everyone to get along. Okay, so that will be thing one, but what do you want to do in your life, Well, and a lot of people in his position will say something like, well, I don't mind moving out with Julia. Okay, that's good to know, but that's not what you want. What do you want? Well, I know my parents want me to have the farm. I'm not really sure about that, though. So you hear the back and forth. I'm asking someone, what do you really want? And the other person will tend to search their soul for the answer to that question. But they're always referencing other people. They're always that what they want, the answer to what do I want is always in relation to others. It's always in relation to an external force. It's never in relation to an internal force. Now, the reason for that is because they were never given a chance to connect with who they are. And I've talked about this a lot, but in summary, when a child is 2, when a child is 5, when a child is 7, you as a parent are attuned to your child, and you're noticing their emotional state, and you're curious and you're interested about them, and you care for them and you respond to them in a way that helps them emotionally. So you have a 3-year-old who is playing with toys, and say there's too many toys around and they're getting a little frustrated and they start kind of throwing stuff around. And you as a parent, you notice that and you're attuned to it, you kind of know what's happening, and you might even say to the 3-year-old, oh, it looks like you're kind of upset that you have so much clutter around you. Maybe we could pick up your toys. Maybe say that. But the first part of that statement of like, I notice what you're doing, and it kind of looks like you're frustrated with all the toys around you. You're frustrated with the clutter. Okay, to the 3-year-old, they might not noticeably register that, but they register what you just said. They go, oh, very quickly, they hear you saying that to them. They're like, frustration. I'm hearing the word frustration, which is, I kind of know what that word means because I've heard them use it in context. It's kind of like an angry feeling, like a this kind of feeling, I'm frustrated feeling. And when I would work with kids, we would often do these kinds of, like you can't use words with kids. You have to use physical, communication. Anyway, so the kid's like, oh, my parent just said I'm frustrated. That's what this is right now? That's what this feeling is frustration? Huh. And my parent also kind of noticed that maybe what I want is to get rid of the toys. Huh, I guess that is what because in the moment, the 3-year-old didn't have any words for what was happening to them. They were just like reactive, like a lizard or something, the way instinctual, just reacting, just but then someone put words to what I'm experiencing in my body, in my emotions, in my thoughts. And then the child begins to reflect on the self. The child is now 2 parts, the self and the reflection on the self. The I is reflecting on the emotions. The me is reflecting on their thoughts. So you have 2 parts to yourself. You have the observer and the observed. And so the child in that moment is very quickly in a split second, very quickly saying, oh, that's a thing, to evaluate what and to put it into words, put it into language. And you repeat that, and you do it to a 5-year-old, do it to a 7-year-old, do it to a 10-year-old. And you just do that over and over and over again. And over time, the child learns without needing you to tell them how they feel and what they're thinking, because they've had these opportunities with some guidance from the outside, and with the addition of actually asking children, how do you feel right now? What do you want? That's the other half of that, is like a lot of time spending, what do you want right now? Do you want to play with your toys, or do you want to watch TV? Which one do you want to do? And then the child gets to, so, that's a thing? You can make choices? Well, how do I know what do I want? Well, a 3-year-old doesn't really know. You'll notice that. 3-year-olds are just kind of random. I mean, they kind of know what they want, but also they don't have a fully articulate. If you ask them what career they want, it'd be hard for them to answer. Anyway, so you do those 2 things. You reflect, and you also ask. And over time, and this happens thousands upon thousands of times, and over time, the child learns to be able to look inward, find those resources, refine those connections, and as an adult at the age of 27, they will, without much effort, know how they feel, know what they want, and be able to balance out not only what they want, but what other people want for them. That they'll be able to figure out, like, well, I want this and they want that. What's the answer here? And maybe they'll have to talk about it with someone, but they have the ability to answer the question, what do I want? What do I want to do right now? Like for me, I'll just model this. Earlier today, I was thinking I want to record a reaction video to Brandon and Julia. 90 Day Fiancé is on tonight, and I want to watch it and I want to react to it. How do I know that? Well, it's not a magical thing of just knowing what you want. It's because my parents spent a lot of time asking me what I wanted, or enough time, and spent enough time reflecting my emotions and helping me navigate that viewer upon the self. And so very quickly, earlier this afternoon, I was like, I can't wait. I knew that. I wanted to. In fact, not only did I want to, but I was really looking forward to it. There's a chance that Brandon has no connection there. So to look at him and say, what a hypocrite, or he's gaslighting people, or he is a mama's boy, these kinds of accusations, I think, are unfair to the personality condition that might be present. I don't know if it's present, but it could be.
Have the money for an apartment. She's
Don't
gonna
you want a nice wedding and to do things, to buy a house?
Don't do it wrong. Do it right.
Okay, so now we're seeing the coercive style of both parents. It's very possible that the dad has the identical trauma. He is harder to read because he's less vulnerable in this moment, but for the mom, she tends to use guilt, it looks like, of, I thought I was, she'll cry and say, look what you're doing to me. And then for him, his method is to put people down and to say, you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing something stupid right now. Let's rewind that and listen to what he said. It's a clear message of, you're making a mistake and you are stupid. At least that's how I'm taking it. Let's rewatch that.
You need to sit down and talk to her.
We've done that.
I mean, you don't have the money for an apartment. She's
Don't you want a nice wedding and to do things, to buy a house?
Don't do it wrong. Do it right.
That's right. Don't do it wrong. Do it right. You're doing something wrong. Don't do something stupid. You don't understand. So let's imagine this style of parenting throughout his life. Now, I don't want to accuse the parents. Maybe they're wonderful parents behind it. I'm being genuine here. I'm not just saying this. I've evaluated enough families to know that watching something on a television show would not be sufficient in the ability to really know what a family is like. But if we're going to use this as a jumping off point and say, to our own lives, or if you're a clinician out there, I know many of you are, and to use this as a learning experience for our own clients, we could imagine this parenting throughout Brandon's life and what's the goal, right? Now, people say, oh, they're so controlling. Well, there's always a reason for controlling. People don't want to control just to control. I mean, there's some level of that, some level of like, I want power, because without power, then I will be abused or something. But usually control is a secondary thing to something more fundamental. It's usually fear. We usually control out of fear. We're afraid of something. Okay, what are the parents afraid of? Well, the mom seems to be afraid of abandonment. She seems pretty clear about that, of just like, I'm going to lose a son. That was her primary thing. To the dad, he seems to be giving lots of messages around, you're going to make a mistake. I wonder if the dad has a lot of traumas about making mistakes. I wonder if the dad has a lot of pain and humiliation in his past about mistakes that he made that he desperately doesn't want his son to make. So he thinks he's doing this out of love, maybe. I don't know. It's just a guess.
It's not my decision. It's not.
It is your decision. You're the man of the family.
Wow. Now they're just getting flat out aggressive. The dad is, anyway. But Brandon, I mean, it's not my decision. I'm 27 and I'm moving out with my fiance to get married. Not my decision. I have no say in this. And the parents are like, yes. Even the parents don't buy that one. It's like, no, this is your decision. But they're not saying it that way. They're really digging in here. So, well, this is interesting. So we've actually seen them blow up before. There's a possibility that in the end, this is what they need to go through. And maybe Brandon even knows this, that the parents always go through some big dramatic reaction, but then they adjust. So we'll hope for that.
Family.
Gosh,
Either
You're
I'm
the
staying,
man.
either I'm staying here alone, or
You better.
I'm leaving together.
Can she do it? Aw. The fact that she's making you choose between us and her, that makes me so sad.
Drummed up crying isn't something that people do for no reason. They're doing it for a reason. Why does a 7-year-old drum up crying? Well, it's because they're terrified or they're scared or there's something deep. There's a deep sadness that they're feeling that they feel like if they expressed it, it would not be heard. So they have to do something dramatic in order to get the attention of people. It's possible that the mom wasn't given that attention, and so she had to drum it up more in order to get people to hear her. So again, I suspect that the mom deep down right now is terrified of being alone, terrified of abandonment, feels like this is a deep abandonment, and wants everyone to understand how it makes her feel. Let me go into some detail on this. So I don't know about the mom, but there are a lot of people out there with abandonment traumas who have been abandoned by their parents or abandoned by other people or abandoned even by emotion. You know, your parents can be there, but they can abandon you emotionally. There's a lot of, or you can be abused by a parent, and that's kind of an abandonment as well, because the good parent has abandoned the child and the bad parent has entered the building. So a lot of people walk around with a lot of abandonment traumas. And when a small abandonment happens, say a child moves out of the house, that's a mild abandonment. You know, parents feel that, as I've been saying. It's like it hurts. It's a little bit of an abandonment. Now, parents normally will modify that feeling. It's like, I know it feels like an abandonment, but this is a good thing. I need to see the good side of this. But it is a little bit of an abandonment. Now, if you have abandonment trauma, then even a slight hint at abandonment will stab that old wound. The whole body goes into distress mode, high distress. And you're terrified and you're hurt and you're panicking. And the solution is to not have the person abandon you. If you can get the person to not abandon you, then you can relax, right? Well, what if you are just seeing abandonment where it doesn't exist? Well, then you're going to signal to a lot of people, you're hurting me. Why are you doing this to me? Because from your perspective, it feels like abandonment and it justifies it. You know, imagine if he was to say, or let's just say any old 27-year-old son were to say to a mother, I'm never going to talk to you again. I never want to see you again. I hate you. Okay. So that would really hurt a mother, right? That would really hurt them. And it would be normal for them to be very hurt and then to cry and to say, no, don't abandon me, my son. I love you. Okay. So in that situation, it would seem balanced. It would make sense. But what if you have tremendous traumas of abandonment and tiny, tiny little abandonments feel like large abandonments? Well, from the outside, your behavior and your emotions are going to look kind of strange because you're very reactive and you're desperately trying to get that person to come back to you. You might even yell at that person, how dare you do this to me? She might even go to Julia and say, how dare you take my son away from me? And how dare you abandon me? Because I think the mom actually wants Julia to accept her. I think she feels abandoned by Julia too. So from the outside, it'll look disproportionate, but from the inside, it feels proportionate. In the same way that a war veteran, when they hear a loud noise, like 4th of July, a firework goes off, and then for a week, they can't leave the house and they're shivering. From the outside, you would say, that's disproportionate. It was just a firework. But it's on the inside, it is proportionate, that the behavior that you're observing from the outside is proportional to the amount of distress the person is feeling as a result of the traumas that they went through. So when we watch the mom, it's possible that that's what we're seeing. I don't know. I'd have to ask her.
I hate to see her like that when she's getting very teary-eyed, but it doesn't change my mind, and it doesn't really change the situation, no matter what they say.
Okay, interesting. So away from the parents, he's saying, it doesn't change my mind. You didn't say that in person. But I don't know. I mean, there's a possibility that all's well that ends well, that maybe he does move out and the family does adjust, and the mom learns that I didn't actually lose my son, that I still have a son even though he just doesn't live at home. And maybe Brandon and Julia will live happily ever after, and they needed to go through this messy conflict in order to transition to the next phase. You know, it's a possibility. I'm trying to see the silver lining.
I'm not even hungry now.
Thank you, Inigo. Is there anything that we can do that could maybe change her mind or make her...
I don't know. Maybe I can throw in a bargaining chip. Maybe we can stay in the same room.
What? No. I mean, I guess that makes logical sense. I guess I can see why Brandon, that would occur to him. I'm just going to predict and say that Julia is going to say no to that. But that's interesting. So looks like the parents are considering it.
Last straw, would you be willing to maybe let us stay together? Because that's just common.
No.
No.
No. Not
Stop,
absolutely
stop,
not.
Stop, stop,
No.
stop.
Stop. Absolutely
No, Ron.
not.
Okay. So the dad is coming across real strong. There's another way to communicate this, which is, okay, I hear that, but yeah, that's a tough one for me. I'm real sorry. I can't go there. My religion or my belief system is such that I just can't compromise on that one. I'm really sorry. Yeah. So you could just say that. Why do you have to say it like this? Now, if you're saying it like this, that points to a lot of emotions going on inside of him, maybe conflict. I don't know. But we also see something interesting where the dad is saying, he almost considered it, and then he said no, and then the mom is saying, no, let's compromise here. Let's compromise. That's interesting. So it sounds like that was mainly the dad's thing.
You know what? No.
Ron.
Because you know what? I'm not going to give in to her.
Ron.
You know what? No, stop. No. There's got to be some respect here, Brandon. And that makes me angry because if this is what it's going to take, you know what? You guys do need to find your own place. No.
I think so.
Absolutely. But then
Wait,
that's
wait, wait,
fine.
wait. Stop,
But
stop,
no.
stop, stop.
Okay. Again, it's okay. Now the dad is starting to look like he's regressing to a younger stage of life. An adult, a mature adult would say like, hey, I hear that. I've been hearing her say that and you say that from the beginning, but I'm just not going to budge on that. I'm real sorry. But there's something triggering him in this moment. I wonder what that is. Let's try to think about this. So Brandon's like, well, there is a bargaining chip. Maybe if you let us sleep in the same room. And then he presents it to the dad, and then the dad's in the mode of like, let's try to make this work. So I think in his mind, he almost considered that. He turns to the mom, and then the mom turns to him and kind of looks like, well, maybe we should give in on that one. And then if I was to take a guess, I would say the dad was triggered by the notion that no one was on his side, that Julia and Brandon and the mom now are not on his side about this very important thing for him. And emotionally, that might feel like an abandonment for him, or a disrespect, or a discounting. Maybe that's the best word, of that he felt discounted, that he felt his very firm belief system was discounted by everyone. That's the emotional vibe of just like, no one respects my boundaries. No one ever respects my boundaries. I wonder if he has traumas around that. Let's rewind that and keep that in mind as a possibility as we watch his reaction as this happens.
Last straw, would you be willing to maybe let us stay together? Because that's just common.
No.
No.
No. Not
Stop,
absolutely
stop,
not.
Stop, stop,
No.
stop.
Stop. Absolutely
No, Ron,
not.
I
You know
think-
what? No.
Ron.
Because you know what? I'm not going to give in to her.
Ron.
You know what? No, stop. No. There's got to be some respect here.
So I always like to think about what age of a child people are operating from. When we all do this, I do this. I don't usually do it on these reaction videos, but I do it all the time. And what age would you say is most indicative of someone going, no, 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 I'm not going to. No, you can't make me. No, I'm not. Okay. Most of us would think of like 5-year-old, maybe. you could say 3, you could say 7, somewhere in that zone. And that's that voice of like, no, black and white thinking of like, I have rights and you are not going to take my toy and I don't want to go to bed. No. And I need to tell you that that's no. And so that's the way he's coming across. And so I'm guessing that's where his traumas began, around being disrespected. Again, it's a lot of speculation. When I work with people, I will throw stuff out there, and half the time they're like, it doesn't really resonate with me. And half the time they're like, oh, let's go down that road of exploration. So I'd be curious what the dad said to that.
We'll can maybe try and figure that part out. If that's the compromise I have to make to have you guys stay.
I think if I can bring that to her attention, it's a step in the right direction. She feels like she's gained some ground, and she has, in a way. They just mentioned bring that up to her, and...
All right, so it's interesting. I wonder what will happen. I don't think it really solves the problem, though. I don't think any of us think it solves the problem. I think that it maybe solves kind of a problem. But the emotional environment that the farm is, I think, is the bigger problem. That's why I wish that Julia would have identified that. Or why would I wish that? I just assume that that's what's really happening, and I wish she would. I don't know if that's true. Because she kept saying, like, I don't like taking care of the animals. She kept really emphasizing that. And the way your mom is and stuff. I wish she would say something like, your parents are so, I don't know how to say this, emotionally strange to me that I cannot relax when I'm on this farm. I don't know what's going on with your parents, but I can't relax at all around them. The way that they behave, the things they say, it is intimidating. I'm afraid. And so unless they somehow change their personality, I cannot be on this farm. I'm guessing that's what Julia is coming from. And of course, there's a language barrier. But in lieu of that conversation, she emphasized these other things. And now Brandon, I think, is under this impression that if they sleep in the same room, somehow that will solve the problem. I don't think that will really solve the problem for Julia, but we'll find out.
It's a bargaining chip. It should not be a bargaining chip.
But you know what?
And that bothers me.
But
Betty.
if it keeps him on the farm, I know.
He needs to talk to her and say, dear, listen to me. He has to take control. I'm just shaking my head. I'm just like,
Think positive.
whatever,
Please.
whatever.
So another interesting interaction between the parents. There's just so many questions I have, I guess. As I see them interacting, I have so many questions for the parents. Really, I do. I feel like I understand Julia pretty well. I kind of feel like I understand Brandon, but I'd still have a lot of questions for Brandon. But the parents, there's just so many questions that I want to ask them, and so many things if they were willing to explore.
Let me get out of here. Let me talk to her. All right.
And I want to be clear. There's nothing wrong with having a rule that your kids who aren't married don't sleep in the same room. I want to be clear on that. I would imagine a lot of places around the world have that rule in their house. So that's not strange. What I'm saying is the way in which it's being communicated, the way it's being negotiated, the interpretations they seem to be taking, the inflexibility, that's what I would really want to ask them about.
All right, take care.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which I watch this TV show and react to it. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.